Welcome to WTF Red, the only askreddit channel that will blow your mind. Like and subscribe right now to support Pepe's career as an independent musician. Askreddit. What's your most embarrassing I thought I was alone moment? I was sleeping over at a friend's house. They had cats. I love cats. They were, I thought, asleep, and I whispered to a cat in a desperate tone how much I wanted its attention, and I was so lonely. I turn around, and friend is giving me a big WTF look. Sometimes when I'm showering, I think about that moment and I want to punch myself in the face. Was walking past a car pulled up in front of a shop on the side of the road. The passenger windows were rolled down, and two fluffy dogs started barking at me with those really yappy kind of barks. Anyway, I barked back at them, just as yappy and loud. I guess this kinda confused them, because they stopped barking. I barked once more to assert my dominance, pointed my finger at them and said, "I'm watching you." Then I noticed there were people in the back seat. Awesome. I may be late to the party, but this story is perfect for this thread. Not me, but my father. Him and my mother were grocery shopping when my dad suddenly had to let one rip. After turning down an aisle, and assuming it was just him, and my mother behind him, he lets out the biggest, raunchiest fart. My dad's farts are legendary in my family. He lets out a woo, and turns around to my mom saying, "How did you like that one, honey?" Except it was not my mom. It was a grocery store employee. My dad said he's never seen such sheer horror on a face like that, guys. I talk to myself when I'm alone. All the time. Anywhere I happen to be alone. This includes when I'm working. So one time I'm stocking candy at work, and I just bust out singing, "You light up my life," and I turn around, and there's this poor customer looking at me trying not to laugh. I felt myself turn bright red, but I laughed awkwardly and said, "Sorry." He says, "No man, it's alright. I do it too." I had just finished watching Avatar: The Last Airbender, the whole series one summer, and was cleaning the house when the head of my broom fell off. Naturally, it resembling a staff, I went to my backyard and began to spin it around and play with the staff for a bit. Around 5 minutes went by, and I look up and notice my neighbor watching from his window. I was 20 at the time. Every single time there is anything remotely resembling a staff, I twirl that mother ducker until I either hit myself in the face or hit myself in the face. I was staying at a nice hotel, the Empire in Llandudno, North Wales, while traveling for work. They had a great pool. I went in there one morning, and I was the only one there. I started messing about, recreating the opening scene of Jaws, where the girl realizes that her leg has been bitten off. Then lots of splashing like the shark had come back for the second go. Then I tried a bit of synchro, kicking my legs up in various shapes. Then I did a bit of goalkeeper practice by throwing my goggles and diving to catch them. Then I saw a window overlooking the pool and a family of 6 people eating breakfast and watching me. I'm a 51-year-old man. Just the other day, I got really high with my brother and his wife at my house. We had a grand old time and they ended up staying the night. I woke up the next morning feeling pleasantly relaxed and, having completely forgotten that they stayed over, proceeded to take a nice refreshing bath with the door open while singing loudly and out of key and shaving my nutsack. Somewhere in between the second chorus of Kissed a Girl and the completion of a perfectly smooth and delectable scrotal surface, I noticed my sister-in-law, frozen in horrified bafflement in the hall. Duck. I've mentioned it before, but when I was younger, I was waiting for some food in the microwave to heat up, and beside me were some chicken thighs my mum left out to defrost the night before. I started getting freaky with the thighs and groping them and making moaning sounds while gyrating my hips. My mum walked in and asked WTF I was doing. I cringe just thinking about it now. I wonder if she remembers. Realized that my building had security cams in the elevators after 2 years living there, and that concierge actually watched them. And the poor bastards have been subjected to my solo dance parties for months. Christ. Thanks for the gold Reddit. I will never stop dancing. I was at an IHOP with some friends and had received a serious wet gear pond sliding into my booth. The longer I sat there the worse it got, so by the time we finished eating I was ready to fix the problem. So I stepped out the front door and stepped around the side wall of the little entryway to pick it, and since no one was driving through the parking lot I figured I was safe, but didn't want anyone sneaking up, so I kept my back to the wall. I was digging, hand down the back of my pants, yanking out the offending cloth when one of my friends walked around the corner and immediately started laughing at me and pointing. It took me a second to figure out she wasn't laughing at me, but the poor family having breakfast behind the plate glass window that was looking at me in horror. In fact, the whole front of the restaurant is like a giant window. That first day I owned L4D2, I played it literally all day, with my parents supposedly out of town till midnight. The thing is, they came home early and surprised me with cookies from the mall or something. So I, having my earphones on, couldn't hear their footsteps or calls for welcome. They then proceeded to stand in my doorway watching me dismember zombies left and right with a chainsaw until my mother fled crying. My parents are independent fundamental Baptists, guys. TL. Doctor, my brother ate my cookies. I was working on a project at work one day and ended up staying way late, so I ordered some Indian food and whatnot so I could get out as soon as possible. Normally my building clears out around 5:30 to 6 PM, and I was there till about 10 on this one particular evening. On my way out, I jumped into the 14th floor elevator, slowest elevator in the world, and it started to descend. Thinking I'm the only one who could possibly be in this building at this time, and I ripped a big nasty Indian food fart. Just as I finished, the elevator stopped, and 3 models from the modeling agency on the 13th floor got in. I started to panic, since the smell had not risen to nose level yet and almost just got off on their floor, but they were obviously the last ones out of their office, so that was just kind of awkward. As the door shuts and we start to descend, I'm staring down at my phone and just waiting for the inevitable. The girls were giggling and talking about what they were going to do for the weekend, and then all of a sudden, silence. At this point I was wildly laughing in my head and wanting to curl up and hide all at the same time. I was staring down at my phone hunching, hoping that they wouldn't be able to see my face while we made the trip down the next 12 floors which seemed like hours. TL. Doctor farted in an elevator and models got in. Pretending to be a raptor in the hallway at work. Hard to play that one off. When I used to deliver the paper in the mornings there was a dog who would always growl at me and it scared me every single morning. I then came to the conclusion that I needed to establish authority, so one morning I saw the dog, and as soon as it started growling I snapped my fingers and said something along the lines of, "You better shut the duck up before I smack you with this newspaper." I hadn't seen the owner sitting on the porch sipping her coffee. She looked at me shocked. I had always been a sweet 13-year-old boy when I went over to do my collections every week. And there we locked eyes and I tried whispering a sorry, but I just walked away really embarrassed. Wow, I will never forget this, ever. I was on a long flight going somewhere a couple of years ago. I ended up falling asleep for something like 6 hours. Upon waking up, I decided to just keep lying down with my eyes closed and relaxing for a bit until I actually got up. However, due to my extremely dreamy state still, I believed I had just woken up alone in my room as usual. And what do I do when I wake up alone? I fart. A lot. I started to just let them rip, one after the other. And not quiet ones, these were loud and deadly. After a few minutes of non-stop fart action, I decide to open my eyes. The old lady next to me is ducking staring at me, along with half of the other passengers on the plane. The whole place smells also. I literally spread my foul odor all throughout the plane. I was so ridiculously embarrassed that I just closed my eyes and pretended to sleep for the rest of the flight. TL. Doctor, I single-handedly filled a crowded airplane with a foul gas, without my knowing. I start talking with myself in the bathroom and reenacting a conversation in front of the mirror with an acquaintance I couldn't stand. "You're talking to me." Taxi drive mode. She gets out of the stall about 5 minutes into my monologue. Once I farted in an elevator at the airport and the smell was super horrible. I was really by myself. This isn't the "I thought I was alone" moment yet. The door dings at my floor and opens and there's an entire family with like 3 kids standing there waiting to get in. I drag my roller bag out and walk out. As I'm going down the hallway I think about how that whole family is in the elevator with their eyes watering, and how that's all my fault and they know exactly who did it. I start to giggle like a little kid, which is something I still do when farts are involved even though I'm 40 years old. As I'm giggling, I turn to look over my shoulder, and the family is still standing there and all 5 of them are staring at me angrily. They had smelled the elevator and then decided to wait for the next one, and they saw me giggling with bachelor frog type glee. I just stopped giggling and turned back around and kept walking and didn't giggle again until I was in my car. While I was in grad school I lived in a basement apartment of a pretty big building. Right next door to me was a pretty small laundry room, a couple washers and dryers. Normally it wasn't a problem, but this one washer decided that on this day it was going to be particularly loud and was slamming around, and it sounded like the world was ending inside my apartment. I was studying for finals and trying to concentrate, so all the noise was just a nightmare and I couldn't get anything done. In a moment of complete exasperation I ran out into the hallway in my boxers and a t-shirt and into the laundry room. I lunged at the offending machine like it was a mugger trying to rob my grandma. I shook it violently and screamed at it, "Shut up you damn washer, don't you know I have finals this week?" I unplugged it and plugged it back in, and I talked at it like a psychotic person. "I control whether you live or die. Goddamn washer. Can't get anything done." Around then I realized that I should probably not be doing this with other people living down the hall, so I decided to run back into my apartment. And then I turned around, and there was this beautiful college-aged woman who lived in my apartment building, standing there, staring at me, petrified. She just held her detergent and roll of quarters quietly, eyes bulging. She nodded politely when I stammered about how I'm studying for finals. It was being loud. About a week later I walked by a woman and her friend on the street, and I heard her whisper, "Oh my god, it's that guy. The guy from the laundry room I told you about." Not exactly I thought I was alone, but you know how you can sort of feel isolated in your car, rocking out to some tunes? Well, I was blasting Die Mother Ducker Die, windows down, head banging, stopped at a red light. After about 10 seconds, I noticed some people to my right. You see, I was stopped next to a cemetery. There was a funeral going on, and they were all scowling at me. Thanks for tuning in for this WTF Red episode. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the one and only askreddit channel that will blow your mind every time.